Have you ever been in that situation? Oh, I do believe. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I know that he wants what's best for me. I know that sometimes his answer is no or wait or whatever it is. But man, I really do believe, but still, there's this nagging little doubt in the back. And what he's saying is I do mostly believe. Can you do anything to help me overcome what I don't believe? Can you do anything to help me overcome my unbelief? And when you read the story, do you realize what Jesus does? He does something amazing. There's a healing that's about to take place. And you look at this and you see, man, he heals this boy. He's on the ground. He raises him up. He's back to life. But there was more than one healing that took place that morning. It wasn't just the boy who was healed. It was the father too. Help my unbelief. He just helped it. You see, we all experience unbelief, and that you have to understand that without doubt, faith is not possible. Because faith is the substance of things hoped for, and it's the evidence of things unseen. And sometimes there's things that we don't know and we can't see, and we just have to base our life on the evidence that goes along with it. But someday, you will experience what this father did. All this doubt will go away and all the faith will not be necessary. In 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul talks about this a little bit. In verses 9 and 10, he tells us, for we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will be done away. Verse 12, we go on and it says, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. And now I know in part, but then I will know fully, just as I have been fully known. And what he's saying is, we just know a small part of this because our intellect is finite. We can only know so much, but there's going to come a day that all these things that we doubt about and all these things that we hope for, that's going to be solved and settled. You see, the last part of that chapter, Paul writes, he says, now abide these things. Now live in us these things, faith, hope, and love. And then he says, the greatest of these is love. Why would he say that? Because there's going to come a time where you will no longer need faith. You're going to know. And there's going to come a time when you will no longer need hope because you will possess that which you've hoped for. But love's the only thing that goes from this world to the next. It's the only thing. And so as we doubt, and sometimes we're not sure, just realize that faith grows out of that. That faith becomes strengthened because of that. And we're to look to the evidence around us that God is working and he's alive. The last observation I want to make is this. Doubt will never prevent us from serving God. In this one, I don't have this up on the board, but I want to read it to you, Mark chapter 9. After all this took place, verse 28 says, when he came into the house, the disciples began questioning privately, why could we not drive it out? And he said to them, this cannot come out by anything but prayer. Here's what's going on. These guys who he had called out, they'd seen miracles before. They'd performed miracles before. They'd seen Jesus do some amazing things, and not just with other people, but in their own life. And now they're doubting. And his answer to them was not to rebuke them, but to encourage them. It's about faith. These things happen so that your faith could grow. And they don't come out by anything but prayer. What's that? Relationship with God. And you turn over to Matthew 28, and we have this story that's left for us. We call the Great Commission. These men who had seen Jesus, he had been raised, and that they'd seen the resurrected Jesus. They were told to go to a mountainside in Galilee. They walked 60 miles to this mountainside so that they can talk to Jesus and hear what he has to say. And we find out in verse 16 and 17 that when they get there, something amazing happens. The 11 disciples proceeded to Galilee. Judas was no longer with them. To the mountain which Jesus had designated. And when they saw him, look at what it says next. They worshiped him, but some doubted. This is the cream of the crop, guys. These are the people that had seen the things that we only wish we could have seen. And they're still standing on the mountainside, and they still have doubt. And let me encourage you. Jesus knew it. And what he says next is amazing. All authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all men, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And by the way, verse 20, I'm going to be with you to the end of the world. He knew their doubts, and he thought he could use them anyway. And he did. Whatever your doubts are, they do not disqualify you from serving God. Because we're never going to know everything. And sometimes it's what we don't know and how we see God work in the midst of what we don't know that causes the greatest of faith to grow. See, people who follow Jesus are not people who will never doubt. Many of us will doubt and will serve and give and sacrifice at the same time. In the Great Faith Hall of Fame, Hebrews chapter 11, it begins with this statement in verse 1. It says that faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. The New King James writes it this way: it's the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. And in this chapter, which we'll talk about later, there are great men of faith, men like Abraham. But did Abraham never doubt? No, he doubted. But it says his faith was reckoned to him as righteousness. What I want you to focus on this morning is this, verse 2. For by it, faith, the men of old gained approval. It was by their act of faith, by their willing to accept evidence and not really knowing, but to move ahead anyway and then to serve no matter what, because there was this part of them that had enough faith to say, God's real and I will serve. It propelled them to great things, and it will propel you to great things too. It will propel this church to great things, to be people of faith. I'm so thankful to be a part of a group of people who will meet together on a Wednesday night and pray for a vision to reach the community, because it matters. And it's that faith that will truly, truly push this group of people to great things. But this morning, there are some that I want to ask you to make an act of faith. You've never given your life to Christ. You've never started your journey with Him. We believe that the way you begin your journey with Jesus Christ is by being buried in baptism with Him and raised to walk in a new life. It's a life different from yours. It's one that's more challenging. It's not easier, it's harder. But we want to ask you to make a step of faith. Do you have to know everything to make this step? No. Because you're never going to know everything. So we reach out to you and call upon that part of you that believes. If you desire the prayers of the church, we want to pray with you. If you want to talk to our elders, they'll be in rooms A5 and 7 across the hall to minister to you individually. These guys love you. And I can tell you with surety, all we want is we want to be in heaven with you. So if we can do anything we can to encourage you, we want to do that, and we ask you to make that step of faith while we stand, while we sing to encourage you.
My heart will sing, no other name, Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing, no other name, Jesus, Jesus. I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the